All right, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Here we are for another live tutorial session. How's everybody's day going? Hopefully everybody's having a good day. Those of us in the US, hopefully I'm not keeping you from football. And if I am, oh, too bad. We'll get going in just a moment, making sure everybody has a chance to join and get past the initial opening ad. Everybody's looking at here, this is Windjammer Remastered. Very creative project. Coaster Guy 246 came up with the idea of taking the classic Ride at Knott's Windjammer that is no longer there, that had all kinds of problems, both from being poorly designed and very rough ride and not a whole lot of fun. But the general idea was kind of interesting. Took that, made it into something a little more interesting and exciting by giving it a whole new kind of layout. Then N7 came along and remastered it, changed the lighting, added all kinds of his fancy trees, and made the scene just look stunning. Really, really good presentation. Very happy to see everything here. Very cool track. Definitely recommend downloading it and checking it out for yourself. So we have a number of topics that we're going to talk about today. Quite a few. We're going to be looking at switches, transfers, triggers at the track. We're going to look a little bit about suspended and 4D coasters and how to make them. And also we're going to look at the basics of the terrain and kind of get you guys started in that. So a whole lot of stuff to go work on. See some of the comments here. A good snowy East Coast day. Hopefully a lot of you aren't too buried in the snow. I'm out here in sunny California. It is a nice beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky. Certainly no snow. It's probably going to get in the 60s, probably 60s or so. Very comfortable day out here. Well, everybody who has too much snow, please, please, please pack it up, send it to the West Coast. California needs it. We're suffering a huge drought. Just, shove it in an envelope, put it in the mail, put California on it, it'll get through. All right, so we'll go ahead and dive into a few different topics. Let's see, what should we take a look at first? Well, for one thing, I want to start showing you guys a little bit more about how switches are put together. So for that, I'm going to close this park up. I'm going to open up a new park, actually. So actually, we're looking at one that we have already looked at in the past. This is going to be our block test park. The switches are very much part of the block test system. We want to make sure that we have everything and show you guys exactly how those work and how they relate to each other. So we're going to show you a few different things here that are going on with switches, and I'll show you how to place them and how to configure them. Just waiting for everything to load. It's taking a little while to load this park. I've shown you guys this park before, but I've added a few more things to it for demonstration purposes today. So just waiting for everything to load. There we go. That was our little California Screamin' test park that was used for demonstration of the block purposes. Also is a good example of a whole bunch of switches. As you can see here, we got a bunch of different track switches. Yes, before anybody points it out, we all know that, I guess some of us have taken a look. These three storage tracks that are on California Screamin' are actually joined by one three-way switch. You are correct. We don't have a three-way switch here. Those are actually pretty rare. We only have two-way switches in there, so I had to set this up in this kind of setup. But it still works and gets the point across. All right, and what you guys didn't know is that next to California Screamin', we also have Viper, Flying Dutchman, and Tatsu. Yes, Disney has been hard at work adding a whole bunch of extra roller coasters from other parks nearby. So we'll be taking a look at each of these because they all have interesting cases for switches and the way that everything behaves there, as well as a couple of interesting example switches. For now, we're actually going to go live into this park because I'm going to show you a few things about switches and how they relate to block break theory. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the editor. I'm going to go ahead and play them. Let's see what we have here. So this is, of course, of our California Screamin'. I'll start off here because it's a pretty straightforward switch arrangement. This is right here. We're looking at a merge switch. We have switches come in two varieties: fork and merge. Merge takes two tracks and brings them together as one, and a fork takes two tracks and splits them up into two. When it comes to merge and fork tracks like this, NoLimits handles them automatically. So on the way in, they will automatically switch directions as needed to route trains to available stations on that one. And when a train wants to leave, you can see that the switch will automatically move as requested by the station that wants to send the train. Nothing needs to be done. This is all handled automatically. You're going to see the fork over here switch over there because we got a train that's waiting and an empty station, so it's now going to head on in. So all that is taken care of automatically for you. It's all very handy, and it's all very intelligent and very robust. Works pretty well. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this coaster and we're going to bring up the control panel for it. As you can see, we've got a bunch of trains here on the side. We're going to say that we want to actually get one of these trains on to the transfer tracks or onto the main line. So what I'm going to do here, a couple of other things. First, I need to put it into manual block mode. That's going to allow me to manipulate quite a few things about this. I'm also going to take station B, I think that's the one on the left. Let me close those harnesses. There they go. And it looks like it is clear for dispatch. The switch is in the right direction, so I'm just going to go ahead and dispatch that train out of here. Which in manual block mode, you also have to go to the block section. Station B, I need to tell it to go forward. So get that train out of here. And it will head on out to the next block where it will stop. Okay, so I need to bring another train over here. For one of these two trains, I want to bring it over and set it up. But you can see the switches aren't set up for that right now. So I'm going to go over to my switch tab here. Move this actually over here so I can block off part of the screen. And move over to the switch tab. You got a few different, this is where labeling your track segments comes in handy. Whenever you have specialty track segments like this, you got to give it names, those segment names, so you know what you're looking at. So we're looking at the station transfer merge, which is going to be this one here. Let's go ahead and flip that. There it goes. So now we're lined up that we can bring one of the trains. Actually, I want to bring this train. So we're going to have to switch a couple more over here. That one and that one. There they both go. And now that we're at that point, we'll be able to advance this particular train all the way through, because you can see it's all connected. Everything's going to go through here, all the way through there. And there my son has made an appearance on today's broadcast, which is okay. Okay, so now we want to go ahead and run this particular train forward. And I don't remember what section that is on. But luckily the flashing button will tell us which section is available for us to move forward. So that looks like it is storage 1B. Nope, this is going to be storage 3A. 1B at the back. I only have a forward option because it's at the back of the track. So I can take this one. I will go ahead and move it forward. There it goes. Since we have all the sections lined up, it's going to head all the way to the station. AK Coaster brings up an interesting point in the comments, saying that worth noting in certain situations, putting forks on the ride will allow you to use two separate tracks on the same coaster. Basically the reverse of what we're seeing. Yes, absolutely that is true. So you can have one station feed two completely different layouts if you want. We don't really have anything like that in real life that comes to mind at the moment, but yes, that is absolutely possible. Alright, so because we're shuffling trains around here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the switches a little bit. Let's go ahead and take that one out and move it there. Now we're going to see that when I want to back the train up, it's going to head over to a different section. So go to my block, I'm going to go to the station, which is the station B right here. We can go backwards. No, station A does not have a backwards option. Station B does. Why is this? Why can't we back out of station A? Well, station A would back out to a block break. You can't back up to a block break in the NoLimits block break system. You're only allowed a backup option if the segment you're backing up to is storage. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that backup option now. You're going to see it's going to back up following the switches that are in place. It'll land right here. While we're moving trains around, I might as well go ahead and advance some other trains that are all kind of sitting there just for fun. Launch way can go forward. Storage 1B, I'll move it forward just to have lots of trains moving. So this one did not move all the way back. Why not? Because I don't have a boot. I didn't make it to that particular accelerator. I don't have something in there. So it is kind of stuck. What do we do about this in this situation? Well, this is where one of the modes that we have in place kind of comes in handy, which is going to be the ability on full manual to advance the train manually. If there are transfer track segments that are along the way here, they will help push the train automatically where you need to go. Now that all the trains have stopped, I can go to full manual. I can find the offending train that is kind of stuck there, which is going to be, which of these trains are we looking at here? Not that one, it might be train 7. Let's see, are you the train 7? Yep, you're the right train, okay. So what you have the option here is that you can actually manually control a train. Once you've gone into full manual mode, this is essentially like literally pushing a train along the track. You can see I can move my little switch forward and backwards to move it backwards. Now, of course, this is not realistic to real life. In real life, you can't actually just use a switch like this and power a train around unless it's a powered coaster. It's a different situation. This is, once again, very similar to what's going on. I apologize, I have gotten a warning that the frames have dropped a little bit here. Stream quality may be suffering, hopefully it won't be too bad. So once it's gone far enough back where it's going to be in one of the sections here, where it's actually on one of the blocks, and we'll go ahead and stop it moving. By the way, there are multiple speeds. You can go all the way to super fast backwards or forwards. You get both directions. There we are. Now, once a train is on the storage tracks like this, for the system to go back into regular block mode, we actually have to put it into, we have to actually lash it to the track, which means that it is fixed in place and will not move. So it's now lashed to the track. That takes it out of there. Notice I can now once again go back to manual block mode, and more importantly, go back to automatic, and there we go. So that's the idea, is that that particular control is there specifically to allow you to manually move a train around for those times when you'd like to do so. So there you go. Let's take a look at another one of the coasters here. I do apologize to everybody. I've been getting some extra warnings here that apparently there's some stream problems. It'll all be recorded just fine, but hopefully I won't be hiccuping too much to everybody. So let's take a look at some of our other coaster examples here. Here you have the Vekoma Flying Dutchman. Very nice coaster. Let's go ahead and take a look at our options for this one and see how we can manipulate this one. This one's a little bit easier in terms of the block arrangement. Oops, I need to do that. Bring it over here. Go into manual mode. So I want to add a third train to the track. And where are all the trains? That one is actually advancing to the exact station I wanted to use. So I'm going to wait for that one to go through. That is the left station, which I'm going to go ahead and put into manual dispatch. So we have a couple of switches here. Now notice these switches aren't sliding back and forth. We have actually modeled the correct left straight switch track here and the rotating switch track here as well, which is common for Vekoma. These are actually Vekoma based switches, but they're also used on the corkscrew tracks. They're available there. So our switches are actually pretty cool. The merge actually looks pretty cool to see these guys flip around. And the maintenance switch, you can see those flip around. They're pretty neat. So we're quite proud of them. We like seeing the vertical flip. All right, but what I need to do here is put them back where the way I found them. So I want to get this train out of the way. Let's go ahead and send it out of the station. I need to go ahead and dispatch that train, which means I gotta actually send it forward from the left station. So I want to bring this particular train onto the track. And once that train is out of the way, then I can take my switch here. I can take the maintenance branch, flip that around. There we are. Now in the blocks, I can go over here. We'll find that the storage track, I'm allowed to go backwards now, so that'll back that train all the way up into the station. We've placed a transport section to track right here, just to make sure that there's enough power to advance the train all the way back into the station. Transports will automatically move forward and backwards as needed, depending on which direction the train is going during transfer operations like this. Once it is parked in the station again, we'll be able to put everything back into automatic mode and continue on from there. There we go, back to automatic. Oops, back to manual block. I want to go ahead and flip the maintenance track back. There it goes. And we're going to go back to automatic dispatch. Once the train has come all the way around, we'll be able to switch back into automatic mode. One other interesting thing about this particular coaster, I'm going to speed time up a little bit just so we get through the layout a little bit faster. The interesting thing about this coaster is being demonstrated at this point. Notice that we have a switch track that leads over to storage, and we have a switch track that leads over into the main part of the layout. I'm going to go ahead and put this in automatic mode. There we have a train that has asked for this particular side dispatch. There we go. This train is still loading. Let's speed time up a little bit just so we can kind of illustrate this a little bit faster. Now what you're going to notice is going to be interesting here is that this train, as we keep going, you'll never see a train go here onto the storage track. So why is that? Why are we never going to see a train head over to the storage track on this one when NoLimits is really good about automatically alternating which side it's asking for? That's part of the block break system. Block breaks will allow you to send a train, it will automatically send the trains forward into the layout, and they'll automatically switch and merge tracks depending on what direction the coaster is going and where there's an open block. Storage tracks are completely ignored in this particular arrangement. So the only block that's over here on this section of track is a storage track. This switch will never flip automatically to route a train to storage. And that's very important when you're setting up this kind of a system. I've seen some people that set up that are thinking that, okay, this is not going to be storage, I'm going to have a longer run here, and now it's going to lead to a transfer track, and that's going to go to 3 or 4 other storage tracks, but they make this a block break section. And then they get confused because the switch track will then automatically route to that block break and then back into the main line. The reason why is because if there's a valid block break section there, it will route the train there. You want all things related that are not related to the main layout of your coaster. They should all be storage tracks. And that way the system will not automatically route there. And there you go. That's part of the secrets of that. Go back to regular speed. We're going to head on over here to our Flying Beast. This one is also a pretty straightforward arrangement. You can see that we're on this particular coaster. I'm going to show a couple things about it. For one, this has a nice rotating switch that's different than the kind of switches that we have on other ones. This is the only one that offers a horizontal rotating switch, which is pretty cool. So there's the fork. This one was quite difficult to design, but you do have access to this on all B&M styles of track for the normal B&M, not the dive machine. So we're good shape here. These are pretty cool. I'll show you how to select these options as we go along. One thing I wanted to point out, though, is that we have 2 different stations. We have the transfer track segment here is available. So let's see what we can do in terms of backing a coaster onto that. I'm going to take a look at each of the blocks here. Left station and right station. Notice they only have the forward option. They don't have a backward option. Even though this is an open section of track, we can't back a train out of the station into this particular section of track. Why is that? In NoLimits, what ends up happening is, again, you can only back a train up if the receiving section is going to be a storage track. Transfer tracks are regular block break sections of track. They are not storage tracks. So that's why even though on California Screamin' we could back a train out the station into the storage areas, on here you can't do that. So that's just one of the things, that's one of the limits of how the system is working here. Yes, there are real life coasters where you can actually back out of the station and onto the transfer track and do the work that you need from there. For our system, we programmed it so that you can only back into storage sections. So that's why you can't do that. Now, on this one, we can move from the final brakes forward, which we're seeing over here. The sun is going down. I'm going to speed up so the train gets here sooner rather than later. And before transfer, we're going to move forward from there onto the transfer just to show the fun. This is some of the cool stuff of when you get to be a ride operator here on these rides. I'm going to go to my switches, which is where you're going to also find the transfer table. I'm going to move it off to the right 1 branch. And once we get there, the section that we're on is blocked. This is the transfer table. You see this offers forwards and backwards options because why? The section behind it is storage. That allows us to back the train out and onto the storage track. So some things to keep in mind when you're trying to set it up to determine how you're going to be putting trains off and on the track like that. So now that we've done that, we can move our transfer table back to the main line here by going to the left 1 option. And we'll be able to, once it gets there, actually right now, we can resume automatic operation. So there you go. Pretty cool. I'm going to reset the whole day here. Actually, I'm going to have to reset the park from scratch because, of course, it has gotten dark. There's one other thing I'm going to show you about how robust the transfer system is with NoLimits. We did a lot of testing with a lot of nightmare scenarios that aren't realistic at all, just to make sure that the system could automatically handle whatever you're throwing at it and all kinds of things with the switches and directions. So to that extent, I'm going to present to you a little coaster I called Switch Hell. This thing over here was specifically designed just to test out how effective the block system was going to be at automatically routing coaster cars around a very silly layout with lots of different coaster cars here. So I've changed colors here. Yellow are going to be switch tracks that are forks. Pink are the merge tracks that bring it back together. And you can see that we have a number of strange oddball settings, but this does demonstrate quite a few things. You'll notice that as trains are ready to move forward, switch tracks are automatically flipping up to 2 at a time ahead of it to line up for whatever is going to be asked of it. This section here is aware when there's an open section right here or when there's open track over there, so it automatically routes cars accordingly. If this section here is stuck and it doesn't have an available spot to send a coaster, it's automatically going to keep sending coasters this direction until this block is finally free. You notice this one is not going to ever change. I've made that a section of storage track, so it's never going to try and route there, and this one will never leave the storage because I'd have to put it into manual mode to get it out of there. And this is just all part of how robust you can do this. You know, we've got 3 different stations. It's automatically determining which ones are available more often, or which one is available to route a coaster to. This one on the outside, yes, I know the buildings are colliding. That's okay. Demonstration purposes. I put a longer dispatch wait over here and a shorter one here so you can see how often it knows what's available and when to switch the tracks over to it. So a lot of cool stuff like that that's available. If I didn't have quite so many cars on here, you'd see some other things, such as when a train is coming in and there's an available station that's a couple of blocks ahead, the switches will move prior to this block being occupied because it knows that it wants to route the car to that particular spot. This one has too many cars on it, so you see them all stacking up like this. So, well, there you go. This is kind of a little explanation, a little demonstration of all the things that you can do with switches. I'm going to do one more demonstration of this is actually kind of a better real-life purpose of manual switches here on Viper. Real-life Viper is kind of an interesting case when it comes to the transfer track segments, which I always hate when I do that. Let's do this. So we're going to go ahead and put this into manual block mode because I'd like to get an extra train on the track, even though Viper's never really designed to run 4. Actually, I'm going to have to do one thing here on the big course block break. Go ahead and run that forward. Speed time up so it gets to the end of the run a little bit faster. Let's see it come on in. Again, I'm going to apologize to everybody. I am getting a notice over so often that we are dropping some frames, so there may be some quality issues going on, and I apologize for that. Alright, so we have a train sitting here on the final brakes. What we're going to do here is we're going to show you what's involved in transferring that off. Now, these particular sections are inclined downwards, kind of hard to see, but there is a downhill section here. Classic aero coasters didn't use, rarely would use any kind of friction tire to move a train around. Viper is an example, but it uses it in a different way. That's okay. So I'll go ahead and transfer the train over here. I'm going to speed time up just to make things go a little bit faster. It's another real-life, application of using the ability to manually route a train around. So I'm going to get this train off. We're going to say that we need to service it. We're going to go ahead and move that forward from the final brake run because we haven't opened a section of transfer track there, or storage track. And once that's out of there, we'll be able to move the transfer table over to the left a couple spots. I'm going to hit it again so that it goes all the way through and doesn't stop there. After it stops, it'll keep going. Now, one thing to point out is that while I do have tires here on the storage track, I don't have tires here on the main section of track. So when I actually try to back the train out of there, the storage, which is left storage, I can back it up. It's not going to make it all the way. Put it back into regular speed. It won't make it all the way. And this is actually very much like the real-life ride. It has some friction tires here that help kind of push the train back, but there are no tires on the final brake run on this transfer track section. So what has to happen is that they have to go manually, just kind of give it a push to make it get the rest of the way out of there. So I'm going to find the train I'm pulling out of here, which I believe is this train. That's train 3. So I'm going to back it up the rest of the way. Back a little bit more. I want to make sure it's fully on the transfer track. There it is. You can see it's past the gap there. I have to do a few things. Train 4 needs to be lashed to the track because it is on storage. Train 3 is ready to go. I can go to individual devices here. And on this particular final run brakes, I want to turn them on. because that's the one that we're on. This is the final brake run. Need to turn these tires off, so let's go ahead and turn them off. I said off, there you go. And now we're ready to go ahead and manually move the train back over again. See the switches, we can go ahead and move to the right, and I'm going to hit it again so it goes all the way through back to the main line. We'll speed that up. There are some coasters out there that use gravity to pull trains out of the storage track and into the main line. And the only way they can get the train back into the storage is to use a winch and manually pull it back up. Alright, so now that we're here, there's one other thing I have to do since I was able to manually move that particular train. I need to undo that, turn that off. And now we should be good to go in terms of all the sections. They should be ready to go and back the way they're supposed to be. So I have not done something yet. Train 2, why are you lashed to the track? You shouldn't be. There we go. Train 4 should be, good. So one of these options I have not yet set correctly, so I'm not able to properly move everything yet for some reason. So sometimes it can get a little finicky trying to get back out of full manual into regular operation, so something isn't set here correctly. One of the devices isn't there. Before station brakes, they're on. Guys are, that's good. It's course brakes. Oh, they can be off. That's what, nope, that wasn't it. Nope, actually mid-course brake strength should be on. Yeah, it's one of these ones. Final brake runs, they're on. Nope, we want to keep that on. We might not have backed it far enough up. Sometimes you have to back it further out than you think so that it'll reset correctly. Go back to trains. Okay, we're going to move that one. I want to back it up a little bit. No, switches. Box. Still not showing that it's properly occupied here. So I think I have to advance all the trains forward a bit, and then it'll pick it up. Anyways, this is all part of why you'd actually do this. I was able to do this when I practiced it this morning. It doesn't seem to want to do it now. That's okay. There's the devices. I want to open the brake. Yeah, it's going to be giving me a little bit of a headache here, but that's okay. So, as long as I have all the trains on the storage tracks lashed to track. You are... That's right, train 3. Nope, train 4 is the one that should be lashed to track. Is that the right one? Oh, I have the wrong one. Okay, that's what it is. Let's see, which one are you? It's that one. There we go. This was the train that was the problem, was actually train 2. So now that I have that set back in place, I can resume automatic operation, and we're back to normal. So that's a little bit of an explanation about the switches themselves and how they work and the transfer tracks. You can use them properly in the game. We're good to go. So now I'm going to show you a little bit more about actually placing these. So I'm going to head into the editor here. Show you some of the properties that are available to you on all of these various devices. We're actually going to close this part, head over back into our learning park, so that we can we'll go into the learning park here. This is going to be learning park right there. One moment here, we're going to get learning park loaded up. I have some new things to talk about in here, but real quick we're just going to demonstrate what's needed to put a couple of nifty properties when it comes to placing switch tracks and everything. So what we're going to do is do a new coaster just to demonstrate switches and transfers. I'm going to show you how we can do the properties for that one. Placing a switch and transfer spool depends on what kind of track you're going to look at. To get us going, I will start us off on just our usual favorite starting type of rocket coaster. And adding in a switch or a transfer track is very easy to do. It's actually under Element, Special Track. So we're going to place one right over here. Special track, let's start with just a transfer table. I'm going to go ahead and drop off a transfer table here. You can see that by default they show it with 3 sections available to them and a section of pink track in there. Pink tracks are block brakes. So if I double click that, I have all of the same section settings that I would normally get on a block brake are available to me here. Now there's a few other special properties though, since this is a transfer table that we have available to us. I'm going to double click the center spot there, and we can see some of the special track properties. For one, number of tracks. Increase that, and that'll determine how many spots it can stop at along the way. There you go. Now it's changed to 5. Bring it up again. Current track and default track are two different things. Current track is where you can set where it's currently at. I'm going to set it to current track to 4, and you'll see that it pops over there. Default track is going to be during normal operation, which one should it be commonly at? You can have the current track be somewhere different, but by default it's going to be on one particular track. So this means that when it normally is running around inside of the game, let's see where I put that in the 3D vision. There it is. The current track is going to start in 4, but by default it's going to move over to 2 is where it wants to go for the regular operation. And you can actually change this by just clicking the little arrows that are here. There you go. It's pretty straightforward. You can also adjust the length, so we can say that we want to have an 80-foot long transfer table, make it extra long. And the reason for this, these are actually a little bit different than other ones. You can't just grab the endpoints and stretch them around. You have to adjust the whole length of the table that way. You can adjust the distance here, which is the distance between each of these. Right now it's at 9.84 feet, so we're probably looking at a few meters in between each one. If I set that to, let's try something big. If I set 20 feet in between each of those, then you can see that they really spread out. You can move and turn the transfer track by using this gizmo here. You can see that you have a bunch of different options and handles that you can play with. You can grab any one of the edge of the rings and you can tilt the whole thing in that direction. If you want to, you can adjust the forward and backwards pitch if you want to and do something completely crazy and unrealistic. Usually what you're going to be doing most of is just kind of aiming it this way. If you are dealing with one of the older school ones where you have to have it gravity fed, you would have to grab this ring here and tilt it forward. There you go. If you are going to be using transports, then you don't have to worry about that. So if I enable the transport device, then I'll be able to move the train automatically that way. Alright, so one other thing to keep in mind with these guys. Special track properties, this would be where you could actually move this entire thing. Here's where you're also going to find the ability to give it a name. So we're going to say transfer. And switch time. So this is going to be how long it takes to go from one of these sections to the next. 15 seconds means it's going to slowly start accelerating, and 15 seconds later it will have parked in the next particular spot. You want to make that much faster, make it a smaller time. So if I made it 5 seconds, it would take 5 seconds to go from here to there. In real life, the time value differs, and basically based on the requirements of the ride. If it is a coaster that is running at a Disney park and they need to quickly transfer trains on and off the track, like on something like Space Mountain, then the transfer table is designed to move exceptionally fast and to take about 5 or 6 seconds total to finish the operation. If it is at another park that does not need to quickly run trains off and on, they'll use much lower power motors that are still able to get the job done, cost less, and those ones may take a lot longer to move left and right. If you're curious, you can look up a video of Millennium Force transferring a train off and on the track. The switch that they have there, the track switch, takes forever to move from one side to the next. And that's because they didn't need to have it move very quickly, so they went with the lower power motor, saved a couple of bucks, and that's all that was required for that purpose, because it's designed not to be used to quickly send extra trains on and off the track. Disney switches, since they need to change really quickly as part of the regular operation of the ride, have higher power motors in there and designed to move much faster. So you can set that however you want it. Display structure is going to be whether or not we put a simple little kind of sliding rail under or not once it's rendered out. You can either choose simple or off if you want to build your own. So that's basically it for that. You'll find all the regular brake properties in there. Now there's another interesting thing to point out about how these are set up. You notice that we have a bunch of plugs at the end on this side, and we have cones at the end on this side. This is exactly like the start and end points of regular track all the way through. There's an interesting characteristic though when it comes to these guys. And if you're going to add track onto the end of that, so I'm going to add a vertex. I can add on to any of these guys. I'll go ahead and add on to the one that we're not using, like that. Aha, it jumped over to its default track there. Let's see, yeah, it went over to the default track of 2, even though the current track was different. Oh, now it's on 1. All right, so here's the point of this. when you add just one point to the end of the track, you can do something kind of neat. It will go in a straight line, direct straight line from that particular plug. No matter how much I try to bring from side to side, it's going to keep going in a perfect straight line. And this is true of every single one of these on both sides. This really comes in handy when you want to quickly make a bunch of storage tracks like this, because you can make perfect straight storage tracks. All you have to do is just add, stretch that out to what you need. Add in the type separators like this. So actually the whole thing, if it's just one storage track, you can just turn that into storage track. So section type could be storage right away. There you go. Or if you needed to have two in there, you could add this type separator. So if you needed to have two of them, you could stretch that out. Make both sides of that storage. There you go. That's very easy to do. Where it gets more interesting is when you want to start doing things after this. This is handy to get perfect straight track. If you wanted to have a whole bunch of straight track and then start turning afterwards, you add that next vertex, and now you're starting to bend the track again. This one will always be perfectly straight, but then after that you're going to be starting to bend things. The way to get around that, if you wanted to keep some perfectly straight track in there that you did not adjust, is you're going to insert some vertices. Stretch this out longer than you need it. Insert some vertices behind it. Oops. Actually do that. And the reason why I'm going backwards is so that this is now the one that won't bend. The rest of these all will. What you do is double click that one, make it strict. Double click that one, make it strict. I always like to get an extra one just in case I need it. There you go. So now I can slide these guys around and I can make sure I can set up some perfectly straight track after that. And then this one I can play with, and I can make sure that I maintain this perfectly straight track here. So there you go. Switches work the same. We'll go ahead and drop off one of each of those. We'll go ahead and, where is our special track? Switch track fork. There you go. And I'll put in a switch track merge. There you go. Those are the two basic types. You can see that the merge is bringing two tracks back together into one. Fork takes one track and splits it into two. By default, they both show up as left-right. You can see that one track is curved to the left, one track is curved to the right. You have three different types of switch tracks available to you. You can either go left-right, straight left, and straight right, which are all pretty straightforward. Straight and left means you have a track that goes straight and one that goes to the left. Straight right means you have a track that goes straight and to the right. Pretty straightforward again. So those are very easy to do. They have the same gizmo, so you can still rotate the track around as you need to. And you still have the plugs on both sides that you can add track to. And the same rule applies, that once you do that, that is a perfectly straight section of track. The next one will allow you to start bending it. So if I needed to connect to that one there and there, then I do want that one there. Connect those two, connect, and there you go. Now the two of them are connected. I can actually make that a little smoother. There you go. So that's the basics of how those work. Depending on the track style, you notice when I was in here, in the style we have shift horizontally, rotate vertically, rotate horizontally. All of the type of the switches that are there all offer shift horizontally. Certain track styles offer rotate vertically and rotate horizontally, and I was showing you those earlier. The corkscrew styles allow you the ability to rotate vertically on both of those types of switches. So we'll go ahead and actually, we're going to change our coaster type. Style, we're going to go to corkscrew coaster. There we go. And on this one, we'll go ahead and you'll see that I have the ability to rotate vertically, which I didn't have before because it was applicable to the other one. There we go. Facebook, go away. Get all these out of the way. All right. So now we can see that when you look at the track, you can see that there's tracks stacked above and below and above and below. And when we freeze the track, you'll see that it looks just like we were showing you on the Flying Dutchman coaster. Very cool. Motors are all added for you, and some basic supports are all kind of there, and you can use those as a great way to do that. And we've even added in, just to show off some of the details we do, this little thing here, if you're wondering what that is, that's a counterweight. That is there specifically to help balance out the fact that there are rails hanging off to one side. And on this track, you'll see the same thing, that there are strips of metal here. Again, counterweight for the fact that there are rails hanging over here. Pretty neat. So that was that type of track that allows you to do that. I'm going to show you another thing here. Back up a little bit. Raise these off the ground so you can see them a little bit better. And up we go. We're going to change our coaster type again. We're going to go to style this time. We're going to go to the suspended coaster. I'm going to show you all the various types that are available. So with the suspended coaster, we still have the left-right switch track over here, and we have the left-right here, and then there's left straight up on that one. We're going to go ahead and freeze it. See, the suspended coasters are a little bit different in that when you're dealing with the left and straight or the right and straight, you do get this vertical switch option, which is based on the real-life suspended coaster. It has this kind of neat mechanism that mounts to the spine on both sides and a motor that kind of flips it around with a belt. And there's your counterweight. There is no example of a real-life that I've found yet, of a real-life version of a vertical switch for the left-right option on a suspended coaster. It's always straight and turn. So because of that, you won't have the option. You'll notice if I click here, I don't get the ability, if it's a left-right, to shift to do anything other than shift horizontally. I don't get rotate vertically or horizontally. I choose straight left and right, then I get the option, because it doesn't exist. I see a question going by, why don't we add more variety on track switch for motor coaster styles? We've covered everything that we have as real-life example. The only other one that so far that we were able to find were for mine train style. However, the mine train style we have in here is based on the Vekoma mine train, and the left-right that you find on Big Thunder Mountain where the track section rotates doesn't fit. The brake fins and the wheels would get in the way, and it doesn't quite work the same. So that's why we don't have that, but that's generally when we've added them in there is to match real life as much as we could, with some caveats that we can't quite get everything. So let's see what we hear. Yep, I see that he's, so yeah, people doing Big Thunder Mountain, we don't have that exact train style. Those ones, the brake fins ride above the rails. They don't go between the rails. So because of that, they're able to engineer a switch that does flip horizontally to the left and the right, like on the flying coaster. And that's how it works. On our mine train, the brake fin is in between the rails. It would not clear. We couldn't build it that way. So that's why you get the left and right. So, there we go. So we're going to change the coaster style one more time. To show here, we're going to go with the twisted flying coaster. Where'd it go? Okay, so now with the twisted flying coaster, we can see that the straight and the turn, you only get to shift horizontally, but if I go left-right, I get to rotate horizontally. And that gives us the nice, this is kind of what you were looking for on the mine train, and this is what Big Thunder has, is a system like this, where you can see that there's two sets of rails together. You were able to do it here because we had a real life example to work from. Again, it doesn't work on the mine trains that we offer in game because you would collide with things on there. The real life Disney one does not because it's a different design entirely. We don't have that. And other than that, we haven't been inventing switches that don't exist in real life. We've just been building the ones that are there. So there you go. Now, what else do we have here? Some people have asked for elevators and drop tracks. We know we have them on our list of requests. We don't offer them currently. We have no timetable as to when we're going to offer them. Those are certainly been requested and certainly things we want to get to. So that covers the majority of the options that we have for the different types of switches and transfers. Lots of cool stuff there. Now what we're going to do is turn our attention on this one. I'm actually going to unfreeze it so I get that train out of the way just so it doesn't bug me when I try to do some other stuff. And we're going to trains down to 0. Perfect. Okay. Good. So now we can ignore that one and we can move on to this. Earlier today, I prepared a suspended coaster, which we're going to switch over to. All right, so this is a nice little suspended coaster. There's a couple things I wanted to use this as a teaching example for. And with this suspended coaster, first of all, you build it like any other coaster, usually gravity fed rather than motorized transfers through there. Banking of the track is all handled the same. You can see I've already set up a lot of that, just kind of giving a nice little swoopy layout for it. So it's going to fly around here. And I've already assigned some colors to it. There's a couple of key things though. I'm going to go ahead and freeze it as is. And And there we go. We have a ridiculously long staircase leading up just because I'm not modifying the terrain or making this look real, and I wanted to have it dispatch right into the fun part of the ride. So we're going to go ahead and save that. We'll leave the editor. We'll go ahead and run that, and I'm going to see how long it takes you guys to figure out the problem. See if you notice it here. There we go. We're riding the ride. So we're taking a ride down here, just kind of seeing how the swoopy turns turned out. And of course, there's a good like 25 to 30 second delay between when I say something and when you guys have a chance to react to it. But by now, it should be pretty evident that something amiss is going on. And you'll notice that this is a suspended coaster, but the cars are not actually swinging. Why is that? So we're getting to the end of the ride here where this kind of turn should leave them swinging back and forth, and they didn't. So why are the cars not actually swinging? Well, that's because we need to add a trigger. It tells it when to unlock and lock the swinging. Same thing happens on a spinning coaster. You have to add a trigger that tells it when to unlock and lock the spinning. So let me show you guys quickly how to do that. We'll head back into our editor here. Unfreeze the coaster. Those are super easy to add. I want to have it unlock the swinging somewhere over here, so I'm going to go to track, add a trigger. Go ahead and drop one off there. Okay, and then you can see it right there. Now you can slide these around wherever you want and choose when you're going to unlock and lock it. Double click it to bring up the properties. The terrain event, we have a few in there already. You can see unlock and lock spinning, unlock and lock swinging. In this case, to unlock the swinging, all we got to do, choose that, and you're good. And we can name it as unlock swinging if we want to. Apply it, and we're all done. So that's going to unlock it. If we need to lock it again later, we have to add another one. So we're going to go ahead and add a trigger down here. Choose the terrain event to lock the swinging, so that'll keep it from swinging when it hits that. This is also useful when you're going to do some kind of if you're going to set up some other events. You can choose none. You can do all kinds of different things. You can set the trigger, give it a specific name, which would be useful in a script situation, so that when the train hits that trigger, it can be listening for that in a script, and you can do various things there. But the basic ones you would use are for unlocking, locking, spinning, unlocking, locking, swinging. So now that we've done that, we'll go ahead and freeze it. And we'll save, and we'll try it out now. Let's see how we do when we ride the coaster this time. Okay, back over here. There we go. And now you're going to see, and I'll move back a couple cars so you can see the cars moving. And one of the things we're most proud of is the shock animations that you'll see there. They're actually dampeners so that they kind of limit it a little bit and make sure that it's not as violent in real life as it could be. Now you can see we're actually swinging around quite a bit. But we're not getting a ton of swinging action. We're getting some. And this is where suspended coasters are harder to design than others. The swinging is difficult to control in that it's really basically accomplished with a lot of guess and check. But there are a couple of things you can do to help add additional swing to it. Such as, actually one of the odd ones is to underbank turns. Give it less banking than you should, or too much banking. Make the turns sharper than you would. Basically, do not aim for perfection in your coaster layout, and you'll get more swinging action out of it, which is generally more fun. So, there's one other trick that you can do to get even better swinging action out of your suspended coaster. I'm going to show you that right now. So, the coaster, you'll take a look here when I unfreeze it. We go to the coaster properties, and you're going to see that I've chosen, we're going to go with the center of rails right there. Now that's kind of more classic for Aero, but there's a way you can kind of help add a little bit of extra swinging action to do something a little bit different with that one. So what I'm going to do, and this is fine, I'm going to go ahead and freeze this one as is. I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to add a second coaster of the exact same kind. I'm going to import a coaster from the same exact park, from Learning Park here. And I'm going to import the suspended COR. I'm going to give this one negative heartline. You'll see why in a moment. The mode, I'm actually going to go with a custom heartline. And this is actually one where you don't want a heartline around the train, you want to heartline a little bit higher up around the center of the spine. So I'm going to go with a 1.5 foot. That might be a bit much. 1.25. So 1.25 feet negative heartline offset. That's actually going to put it into the spine somewhere. If I take a look at that correctly, nope, actually that was the wrong direction. So let me go ahead and, because I need it to go the other direction from the other rail. So I'm going to go with a 1.25 offset. There we go. So now it's hanging further below. And you're going to notice in the same area as it kind of swings out a little bit further. And that's what we're looking for here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it some different colors just so you can tell these two apart. Change the train color there. There you go. We'll freeze that, and then we'll be able to do literally a side-by-side comparison of the two. They're going to dispatch exactly at the same time. They've had the same exact banking settings all the way through. There we go, and we'll see what happens. So yes, this is unrealistic, but the purpose is to see which one is going to swing more. So let's get one where we can actually kind of watch it a little bit more. So the blue train was the first one. The orange train has the offset of the heartline swinging. We're going to look to see which one seems to be swinging more. So going with the positive heartline value, it looks like the center of rails is swinging more. Positive heartline is not. So we can try the opposite direction, go with the negative heartline to see if we can get some more swinging action in the same spots. Yeah, the center of rails is doing better, so the positive heartline value didn't help. You can see it did not swing as much at all. So that's easy enough to fix. It's one of the beauties with NoLimits is that it's very easy to experiment and try things out and get it really exactly how you want it. And the more you work with a particular style like that, the better it gets. So we're going to go with the negative 1.25 on the heartline. There you go. Instant fix. Change. Freeze. Save. Leave the editor. And we're running it again. Go over here, right in the middle. Alright, so now it's higher, and we're going to see if that adds to more swinging action for the orange train versus the blue train. Waiting for it to get up to speed a little bit here. We can see already that the orange train is swinging out a little bit. So if you use a negative heartline value as you're putting your suspended coaster together, you see exact same track banking between the two of them, but it's giving us more swing than the center of rails did. So you can add for a much more exciting ride that way. So I recommend a negative heartline value on the suspended coaster. You can see it's going a little bit faster through the layout, just a little bit. And of course you're getting more swinging action than on the blue train. Now at the end there's a rather violent swing from one side to the other. That's kind of the thing you have to just shape your track carefully and avoid. In real life, the swinging, Aero, when they were designing these coasters, Aero didn't really have the ability to predict the swinging that much, so they had to kind of be gentle with it. And the turns are all big and wide and drawn out. It doesn't do anything that particularly exciting. This is where you, the coaster designer, have to you do get to see what the swing is going to be like and kind of go from there. So I do apologize once again if there's any dropped frames on there, if we're losing any of the connection and breaking up. The whole thing is going to be captured and you'll be able to see the whole thing after the fact. So there you go. So that's going to be the basics of that. I'm going to run you quickly through how to set up 4D track. Really, 4D track and coasters, there's one very important key thing about it. And I'm going to go ahead and import a coaster here rather than design one from scratch. I'm going to import one instead. We're going to import from another coaster track here. Let's see here. We're going to go into, bear with me just a second here. Where'd it go? That's what it is. That version. And we're going to go into the Two Arrows Park. There we go. And I want to bring X2 in here. There we go. All right. And the reason for this is rather than spend time building one of these from scratch, I just wanted to plunk one in here that's already built. Okay, so when it comes to building a 4D coaster, there's one specific important element that comes around with that one, and that is the 4D node. So I'm going to get rid of the speed comb here. Now what is the 4D node? You're going to see that it is a track option here, add 4D parameter. That is quite literally how you're going to flip the seats around. And that's what those little guys here are. This is a 4D node. This, if you double click it, you see that you have kind of the same thing for the banking angles. 4D nodes can go in a few different directions. They can go forwards or backwards from the starting point. The default starting point of 0 degrees is going to have the train upright facing backwards. So we're going to go ahead and freeze that so you can take a look. Just waiting for it to train. This is the most complicated train in here, polygon wise. Has the highest poly count, so it takes a while to load it. Bear with it just a moment as it pops and finishes loading. Looking through the comments, I do see that somebody is mentioning that they have too much swing sometimes, and that just comes down to how you're shaping the track. You need to kind of be more gentle with your turns, and you'll get a little bit, you'll even out that swing a little bit. Okay, so here we go. You can see the default setting when you're at 0 degrees with the 4D, your coaster car seats are facing upright and facing backwards, with the seat perfectly flat and level. Now we're going to see here that this one is set to 0. This one is set to 45 degrees, so positive 45, and you can see with the little L shape here where the seat is going to be reclined to when you get to that particular point. And it'll stay that way, so between this point and that point it's going to roll back to 45 degrees. Then when you get here, we're going to be at 45 again still. And then here we're going to be at 75. So why is there a 45 here and a 45 here? If you had this 45 here and you didn't have this one here and you just had this 75, it would gradually transition from 45 degrees to 75 degrees throughout this entire section of track. So what's going to happen is you want to keep it at the same distance for a little while. You need to have one that kind of starts and one that kind of ends that one. Now the seat flip is going to automatically be kind of smoothed out between the two in kind of an S curve. So it starts by gently moving, rapidly speeds up, and then slows down again to find the final position. There's no continuous flipping between sections. So you kind of got to keep that in mind with how you're going to design it. We have 75 here. We get to the top here, we're still at 75, which I believe we're going to see there. There's the 75. And now from there, we're going to be flipping to negative 180. So it's going to be 75 in relation to the track. You can see you're nearly on your back. Then down here, instead of being upside down on your back, it's going to be at 180, which means it's actually going to be flipping forward and face down for the drop, which is one of the most exciting elements of X2's drop. And after that, you see you have another 180. And then down here, we have negative 270. That is the extent of how far you can go. You can go plus or minus 270. I'll go ahead and show you here with the parameters. We can add a 4D parameter, sorry. Add that to the bottom. The 4D parameter, I can go minus 270 and I can go plus 270. This is exactly found by observing the real life ride. So plus 270 is going to be face down. Minus 270 is face up. It's 540 degrees worth of rotation. It's a little bit limiting. You have to kind of experiment a little bit to see what's going to happen along the way. And take that into account as you're designing everything. But that's where these little icons here kind of show you exactly what orientation the seat is going to be in at that particular point of the ride. Let's go along. You can see that it's still at 270 there. I'm just going to give us more room to work here. Still at 270, and then from there it's going to change to negative 135, so we're kind of upright on the bottom of this drop. And we're still upright. There's the 135, still kind of on our back. And then the next one we can see is, so that was negative 135. The next one is positive 230. Notice that the seat is kind of at the same angle. In relation to the track, still kind of upright. We go back down here. That's about the same. But because it went from a negative 135 degrees to 230 degrees on positive side, you are doing a backflip through this whole area. So that's how that was set up. So what we're going to do on this particular coaster, and there go one of the dogs letting us know that they are here and there's somebody outside. That is very important. Everybody should be aware that there's somebody outside. And whoever it is that's outside right now is getting the barking of a lifetime, as they well deserve. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. I'm going to just go through the coaster kind of in slow motion, and I'm going to demonstrate one other very handy, helpful thing. While I'm at it, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to use the clearance envelope object and why you would use it in this particular instance. So we have a train in the station. Make sure we have adequate clearance. You always want to make sure that it's not going to run into anything. You can do it the same way that they do it in real life on many coasters. Not all, but many use the same method. Many companies use the same method. I'm going to go into Scenery. I'm going to choose under Home. Actually, the library, it's going to be under Demo Objects. We have the clearance envelope script. One-stop shop. Drop that in there. I'm going to add the object. You add it near the train you want to work on. I'm going to put it there so I can see it. And where to go? This is why I wanted to place it where I could see it. I put it in the stairs. All right. Where'd it go? That's underground, is it? It's probably way too high up in the air. There it is. Okay. All you have to do with this clearance envelope object is just place it near the coaster, or near a particular train. The script will do the rest. And you're going to see that even though you don't see anything yet, just placing it near there is all you have to do, as the instructions say on the box. Go ahead and save that. When it's actually running, do a couple things here. Pausing quickly. I need to get over to X over here. I don't want it dispatching yet. You're going to see that there you go. We have this nice orange cage that represents the farthest extent of the reach of the riders. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the control panel for this one. I'm actually going to want to put it into manual mode so that it doesn't do everything automatically, and full manual. The reason why is that this is going to help us to illustrate exactly what is going on with the fly view. There we go. Nope. Fly by view. So this is going to help us illustrate what's going on with the seat roll as we go along there. And we can do that actually looking really cool here. We're going to look at the 4D rail as it goes by. Alright, so we're going to take full manual control of this particular train. This is going to be train 1. I'm going to want to move the train. It is ready to go, so I'm just going to head full speed forward. So as we go along, you can see that there we are from the station going from 0 to the first roll spot. And the seats have all rolled to that particular spot. We've added a little bit of seat bobble that is meant to reflect real life. There you can see. So let's put the best angle here for this is. So you remember it was around 100, it was like negative 45 heading up to the lift hill. I remember the next spot was negative 75 as we went on the lift hill itself. Keep an eye once we get past this railing. There we go. There it goes. So now we're changing from 45 to 75. You can see the rail moved up, which is exactly how the real life ones work. It's really cool. This little extra rail here is what's controlling the seat rotation. On the real life 4D coasters, it's got a bunch of gear teeth that go into the actual ride. Oops, look, I thought we had a hole in the texture there that illustrates where it goes in. Sorry about that. We'll get Kevin right on that. These gear teeth push up against basically just a big gear, which is what the seat's mounted to. And that's the magic of the 4D coaster. This rail moves up and down in relation to that rail, and that's how it aims the seats. This is also why there's a limitation of plus or minus 270 for a total of 540 degrees worth of flip, because that's as much as you can go up and down here. Okay, so we got a few things going on here. Let's take a look. And we're going over our big drop. So if you remember correctly, it was about to flip over all the way. Okay, so it's always in relation to the main track here. We're going to go to negative 135. I think it was the next one. That's what we're at now. Actually, we're at 75 now. Now we're going to flip from 75 to negative 135. There you go. You see the rails are going down. There we are. We're at negative 180. So basically the seats are now the opposite direction. They were upright and facing backwards initially. Negative 180 puts them upright, puts them upside down facing forward. Rolling the remaining bit to negative 270. You can see this is one of the lower extremes. This is as far down as it's going to happen at the bottom. And that's why you're on your back through the high G-force section at the bottom of the train. Or at the bottom of the first drop here. So speed things up as we get through this section here. See the cars all have their little bit of jiggle, which we've added in there just to kind of simulate reality. Then when we get to the top of the first Raven churn is the next time that we have a change in seat orientation, which is what's going on right now. It's going from negative 270, I think it was, to negative 135. Remember, this is always in relation to the main rail here. It's not in relation to the ground, it's in relation to perpendicular or parallel to the main rail. So negative 135. There we go, which is what we're going to be at for the absorb the G-forces at the bottom of this particular drop. So now the train is upside down hanging below the track, but the riders are facing forward. It's part of what makes the ride so much fun and dizzying and confusing. And the next seat flip went from I think it was the negative 135 to positive 230, if you remember that. So as we do that, you're going to see that the seats are going to do a full and complete backflip. You can see that the rail is getting closer to the top rail as it pushes it along here. We're in positive territory, up to positive 230. There it goes. Up right for the airtime through the top of that airtime hill. And then you're pretty much going to be, for that flying churn, I believe this is at positive 230, you can go positive 270 is the max, which would have the trains completely parallel again to the rail, facing upward. And that's the upper extent of how far you can go, again based on real life, because you can see that the X rail here can't go too much further up. So, pretty cool stuff. That's the basics of how and why the 4D coaster works and what it's doing. Those little seat markers are the 4D parameters with their little L-shaped seats. Those are going to show you exactly what, at that point, the seat is going to be at. When you need to maintain the seat orientation for a while, you need 2. Set to the exact same amount, so it'll know to not do any changes between the two. The only thing to let you know about is on a transfer table, those are automatically going to go back to 0, and they'll be upright on the transfer table. For a horizontal switch, or for a left-right track switch, there is no such thing in the 4D world because the trains are too gargantuan, and cars would be colliding with the track as they go through there. So no such thing in real life, so we didn't bother trying to make one here. You can do it. It's going to look ridiculous, but it is possible. That's the basics of 4D. When you're building a 4D coaster, the idea is to always aim the riders in such a way that the heavy G-forces are absorbed on the riders' backs or while they're upright. And you're not doing too many things to disorient the rider unless they can take it, and they're in a position for that. This is essentially the same kind of idea of what's going on in the Haunted Mansion, is that there's a mechanical mechanism that is forcing the cars to face a particular direction. Same basic concept. This is just being taken vertically. Go through the final Raven churn here. So the other main purpose of why we like to roll along like this is not just to admire the coolness of the seats, is we actually want to go, I'm going to change cars here. So now here we are on the last car, and it's disorienting upside down, but this is what the clearance envelope does. It is automatically attached to your coaster car. You can see it produces a very nice representation of the maximum rider reach envelope for every single coaster style. And you can use this to determine whether or not, I'm actually going to go backwards now and defy reality. So let's go the other direction. So you can use this to determine whether or not you have any collisions with supports or track along the way. If that orange bar hits anything and you can see it, then that means you are too close. Like that particular support there would be too close and unrealistic. So there goes another one. That would be inside of that reach envelope. And that means that that support column is too close and you'd want to give more space. We've calculated these reach envelopes based on a few things. We don't have completely 100% accurate ones for every single coaster style, in that we can't get the manufacturers to just give us that kind of data. We did find a couple, one from B&M, one from Intamin, that illustrated the basic amount of reach from a human figure inside of the trains. And from there, we were able to extrapolate arm reach and leg reach for a human sitting in these positions. And from there, it's just a matter of figuring out where the arms are going to be, where the heads are going to be, figuring out what that reach is, and applying it all the way across. So you can see that Again, we have some that are probably a little too close for comfort along the edges here. And you'd want to go ahead and change that. This is what you want to use the clearance envelope script for. It's really nifty. We do have it for every style. We're confident that this is a good representation of what the reach envelope would be on every single style. And you can use that in this exact manner of slowly moving your coaster train around the track to figure out if it's going to clear. This is a commonly done thing in real life. They call it a pull-through test on a number of different styles, where they attach a wooden frame of some sort to the coaster train, and they run it through the whole layout slowly, checking to make sure that it's going to clear. B&M doesn't attach a coaster car through there. Instead, they have a special frame that they can manually hold along the track and make sure that the footers and the rockwork and everything are not going to clear. So there you go. So that covered a whole bunch of different topics. The last thing I want to cover today is going to be the basics of terrain. So we're actually going to go move into a new park here entirely. So close this park. I want to get a new one. Make sure that's going to go into learning parks here. There's our learning park. Okay. So I'm making a brand new one here just to show kind of the basics of terrain and how we some of the options that are available to you. When it starts, of course, new park starts with a basic gigantic wide open field of emptiness. This gigantic wide open field of emptiness is about 1 square mile that you can build in, and that is a ton of space. But we want to do something with it. We don't want to have flat, plain terrain all the way stretching to infinity. We want to actually have some variety in the terrain. There's a few different ways you can go about doing that. So let's dive into the terrain thing here. There's a few terrain settings that we'll go over. This is a simple, basic plain grass is what most people are probably going to be working with. You do have the ability to set texture repeats for different textures as you go along for various things. You can set up a whole bunch of different settings. The best one to do is just to learn from. We have a few basic ones built in. Complex is the easiest one to demonstrate. It looks good. It's already been set with 5 different textures, all with different repeat rates, all set and ready to go and react there. But you could, if you wanted to look at them, you could look at each individual one of the settings and find out which texture is there for the base map, detail map if we were going to enable it for this particular one. I think there's another one that has detail map. Settings, there's a detail map. The difference between the base map and the detail map is that it allows for blending of textures, and you can make things look better closer and further away. Bump mapping will give you an extra, it kind of works with the lighting to make it seem like there's a 3D texture there, and it's actually doing some shadow casting. It will hurt your frame rate though, because it's having to calculate shadows for the texture like that, with some of the advanced options that are available. Auto paint is pretty cool. Auto paint allows you to automatically paint textures around the land, so you don't have to manually apply this texture all over the place. And you get a few different options with it too. You can set things like the maximum minimum height for where this particular texture is available, and the max slope and minimum slope. So in this particular grass setting, that means the minimum slope, it'll go from anywhere from flat 0 degrees up to about 25 degrees. And if it's under 3,200 feet in height, it will go ahead and paint this particular type of grass texture around. There you go. Let's see what's in the extras tab. There's where you put all your sound effects. So if you have a different sound effect for walking on that particular type, that's where you're going to place them. And you want to have different sound files in there so that you have different variation in your footfalls. They don't all sound the same. And you can also put in an auto plant so that it can add a little bit of depth to your grass. So rather than just a grass texture, you can go look at it up close and personal, and you can see that we've automatically put all these little grass objects around for you. If you didn't, you would have to manually place every one of those blades of grass, and you would go insane because it would be very difficult to do. Let's go back into the terrain settings, and we're going to take a look here at rock. I want to take a look and show you guys this one and the settings that are set up for this one, mostly because when we get to the auto paint section here, you're going to see that this one is taking advantage of the slope function of 30 degrees. So at 30 degrees, this particular texture is going to show up automatically, and at 90 degrees, it's going to stop showing up. Using these kinds of settings allow you to do a number of different things, including you could set if you wanted snow textures to show up over 5,000 feet, you can do that. You can set it so that when the terrain is steep enough, it automatically switches from grass to something else. So let's actually see that in action. By the way, when you do change the terrain settings down here, we have a recompute background button, which will allow all All these trees and all the, most importantly, all the terrain that's in the background, we can recompute that to take whatever's at the edge and carry it along, so it looks more seamless that way. All right, so let's actually start playing with the terrain a little bit. I'm going to show you what happens with the terrain as it moves there. A few different options you can use. These are all set to auto paint, so I'm not going to put down an individual layer right now. Instead, I'm going to show you the influence system here. This is basically showing how wide you're going to be influencing. With 1 point, and I'm going to modify markers, you can see that I'm just moving 1 marker at a time. Just kind of moving things around 1 point at a time. If I move that up to 2, you can see that it's going to be influencing a few at a time like that. I can kind of affect more of the terrain at once. Move it to 4. You can see the area I'm affecting gets bigger. Now notice as I get closer to it that was the little 1 point that I did as a peak. If I'm going to move things near it, because it's within this little sphere of influence, which I can't really demonstrate here, but all those extra little cones that are kind of fainter there, you can see that those are also going to be affected when I move. And since this peak is included in there now, when I move this one around, you're going to see that that peak is going to be adjusted as well. So let's move all the way up to 64, and you can see that I'm going to be affecting a wide range like that. So I can make a whole mountain, and those individual sharp peaks disappeared. This is good for quickly putting together some mountains and some hills. You can see as I get really steep, you're going to see that the textures start to change automatically. And there you go. So this is where it comes in handy with those auto paint settings and setting parameters so that when the terrain gets steep enough in some areas, that it automatically shifts for you to different kinds of textures. See, I'm not even have to do anything here, and it's just automatically picking up and changing the textures, including these gravel textures are set so that they don't have the grass. So the grass doesn't just keep growing up the side there. Some of the magic that you can do with those textures, and you can also set it if it was high enough that it would switch to a snow texture. Lots of powerful options here if you wanted to go around and sculpt the terrain. Another thing you can do, if you go the other direction, you can create a lake, which is pretty handy. And it's easy to put the lake in there however you want to have it. You can adjust the section, the height of the water as well. It's going to be in the terrain settings under water. You can change what kind of textures you're using for the water. You can set the height of all of the water to wherever you want to have it. So the height is going to be, where did it go? There is a section here where you can set the height. Density. Pretty sure that's it. 15, is that gonna be it? Nope, that's the waves, sorry. Let's set up a default water setup. Yeah, and you can save all these setups too, however you want to have them. There is a setting which I'm blanking on. I don't actually play with the water, these things too much. I'm not one of the ones that's that's going to be under set height. There we go. So you can set that. One of the things you can also do if you wanted to reset the entire land, you can do that as well. You can, it's in a terrain generator. That's probably where it is. Oh, that's a different thing. All right. So those are a few of the different settings here. One of the things you can do that I like doing, you can either, there's a few other things I want to show you with the selection rectangle and clear markers. If you want to move an entire section at a time and not by just dragging one particular spot at a time, here's what you can do. This is a little bit odd. You want to choose set markers, and here's how you're going to do it. You can do set markers, and you can one at a time kind of select a spot at a time, but you can see I'm not really getting much out of that. So here's if you wanted to select a whole big section at one time. Start in whatever area you want to start from. Click, drag, go to the other end of what you want to do, and then choose selection rectangle, and you're going to see that I've selected that entire section. And now that I've done that entire section, I can either modify that whole section together, because you can select more than one particular spot and move the whole thing around. There it is. I can take that whole thing and move this whole plateau up at once. That's one way to do it. Or I can set the height of that particular section that has been selected to 50 feet and wait for it. There it goes. So that allows me to do lots of different effects like that. I can also smooth the terrain out, which will take some of these rougher spots, and I can just keep clicking smooth over and over again, and it kind of makes it a little bit less violent. Clear markers will clear all that. Once it's all done, there it goes. So we're back to normal. And then of course the other thing that you can do with that is go into the terrain generator. This is one of the things I like to do. Is just you can set parameters for how much water you want on a map, what the maximum height's going to be, erosion softness. The higher you make that, the softer it's going to be. And a few other different settings, and just generate random terrain. You can hit it again, just generate some more. You can just kind of create a map of interesting looking terrain and play with it. If it's looking a little too steep, which you can kind of see there between the sharp points, those are the highest points, you can hit erode. And that's going to kind of erode what has been generated here a little bit more. Say I want more water, let's say 25% water, generate that. There you go, another different map. This is kind of nice to just generate random terrain. When you're happy with what it's going to look like, hit OK, wait for it, and voila, I'm inside the terrain. But now I've got a very interesting terrain setup here going on that I can design some coasters around. That's pretty harsh, so I can smooth that. It's my smoothing of the whole terrain and just kind of soften it a little bit. If I did that enough times, it would bring it back down. But mostly what I would want to do is when I'm generating the terrain, in the terrain generator, I'd set the maximum height not to 500 feet, but maybe to 100 feet. Generate that. All right, so let's increase that. Generate and erode it a little bit. And let's see what we get. That's a little more realistic. So that's more just kind of some gentle hills. Gives a nice little variation to work from. Those are some of the basics of terrain. There are all kinds of settings that you can use with that. Gives your background a little more of an interesting setup so that you can get a little more of an interesting field rather than a big flat field to work in. Of course, after you've done that, you want to recompute the background so that it matches the foreground. And there you go. And that's pretty much it. So that's going to be it for the various topics I wanted to cover. This was kind of a very quick brush with terrain, but that gives you the basics of how you can set things up. You can set up your own settings so that you can kind of customize the things that you want out of there. You can, if you have a good particular set configuration, you can go with it. We have a lot of other textures in here. Actually, I got to show you guys how to paint on the terrain a little bit. So what we're going to do here is I need to add another type of setting that you can't paint with an auto paint, but you can add an additional layer. So I'm going to do that with the plus sign. New layer A, settings. We're going to call this lava. And for that one, I'm going to choose the lava texture. It's in the library. Let's go up. Is under special effects? Nope. I know. Oh, it's a water thing. So we're just going to go with a type of rock. So you get lava rock terrain. There we go. And with the detail, we're going to enable that. I think there's a detail map for that too. And there is not. That's fine for now, just for demonstration purposes. All right, so I've added an additional layer. Now I can, on the left-hand side, I can choose that particular layer of lava. Make it not quite as big, maybe an 8-point influence. And now I get an option to paint that layer. Yes, I didn't have it on the previous ones because that's automatically being applied, but since this one is not an auto paint, I can actually paint with it. So I can go with paint layer and literally just start painting it on the terrain, which is pretty cool. It automatically blends. So it's a lot of neat stuff that you can do there. If I need to take some of that away, I did too much. I can subtract the paint and kind of shape it a little bit more like that. I go with a smaller point of influence, so you can see that I'm going to a little more of a finer touch with the brush. Very powerful, very handy, and you can see it automatically blends and covers the areas that when they get in that area, it blends them all together. And this isn't a very good repeat rate for it, but the purpose was to show you guys how you can actually literally just paint on the terrain with whatever you want. You can import your own textures, you can set everything up the way you want it, paint it in place, automatically have it apply. Lots of cool stuff. A lot of neat things that you can do in there. The painting is pretty easy to do. If I needed to put a giant block of paint down there in one particular spot, easy to do as well. Let's say I'm going to add one more here. I need to make a parking lot. So the settings are going to be parking lot. You know, because if I'm making a Six Flags park, I need to have a giant parking lot. Because that's where I'm going to build all my coasters. Is it in special effects? No, it's not. It is in pavements. There we go. Parking lot. And that's all I need. Okay. I'm going to switch over to the parking lot. I find a nice section of ground here, which I'm going to first of all need to set some markers for that. I'm going to build it in this area. So drawing a diagonal about where the box is going to be. Selection rectangle, there we go. I'm going to set the height of all of that as one all in the same vicinity, so I'm going to say 30 feet. Now that flattened that section out violently, but it flattened it out, and now I'm going to be able to also apply the paint to that. Wait, let's see here. Let's see if I can do the whole section at once. Nope, I don't want to do the whole train. Paint absolute, there it is. If I remember correctly, that was going to put all of that in there. Nope. Selection rectangle. There we go, and paint. Nope, it wasn't going to do it that way. Alright, I'm pretty sure there's a way to do it. I'm forgetting exactly how to do it, but there is a way to try and do that a little bit faster. So for now, I'm just going to quickly slather on the parking lot. Nope, I'm actually putting down a big giant square parking lot. Interesting, that's how that paint absolute works. Yeah, that's how it works. So you can actually set a selection rectangle there. There we go, now I've got a big section of parking lot. Now I can build all my Six Flags coasters. So there you go. Yeah, so what the paint absolute did is that once I made a selection rectangle or selection area like that, I was able to paint in that selection rectangle versus a round one. So that's what that one did. So I painted the absolute shape of that. That's pretty handy. So now I've got a big wide swath parking lot and we're good to go. That is going to do it for what we were going to be covering today. We have hit the end of our time plus a little bit more. So before we go, as always, happy to take a couple of questions from the crowd. Go ahead and load up, close this park, and I'm going to leave the editor and open up the same park that we were looking at initially, which was a nice one. And there we go. So go ahead and pop in some questions. I'll spend a couple minutes answering a few things in here for you guys. So I do see a question right now, how to do the endless water. You have to actually, the same setting you were using, you have to increase that setting higher to get the endless water effect back again. We are aware of it, that particular issue, that it became harder, but it is possible to get endless water again. You just have to change, I think it was the diffuse setting near the extremes, to a higher value and you can get the endless water effect back. Just keep playing with it and we'll get back to that particular one. Let's see if we have any additional questions here. We'll get to a nice angle for Windjammer while we're looking at it. From the back end here. Yeah, I think I'd like the original angle first. Let's see if we have any additional questions coming out of the chat room. Anybody else? Once again, this is about going to cover everything. We covered a lot today, and covering track triggers, switches, transfer tables, the basics of 4D construction, the basics of suspended coaster construction, some of the basics of terrain, which there's a lot of powerful features in there. I'll be the first to admit I'm not an expert on the terrain. I'm happy to just apply one of the pre-default settings, generate some random terrain until I'm roughly happy with it and get inspired to put a coaster in the corner of it somewhere, and go from there. But we have a whole bunch of different things. We looked at suspended coasters and how to get a little bit more swing out of it. The custom offset there of a negative value gets you more swinging action. But otherwise, it's how you set up the track to kind of be gentle. If you're swinging too much, that means you're doing too many sharp turns, and it's throwing a little bit too much. You do have to kind of be gentle with it, and then it doesn't go too crazy. See a question going by here. How do you make a waterfall in NoLimits? The waterfall would actually take a scripted object. Now, there are some people that have developed that, and that does work, but it is going to be done with a scripted object right now. You can place water objects as well, and something I don't have right now is time to show you guys. You can set up a splash down for the coasters that have the water scoop so that they shoot rooster trails of water behind them. These sections, we have a specific little lake object that includes a trench in it for your splash. It's kind of a trench object. It's already got a trench that's the right size for the train to go through there, and it comes with a lake around it. All you have to do is just kind of build a hole in your terrain, and you can do this at a higher value than the default water level. Build a hole in your terrain, and you're all set. Okay, and what else do we have here? how to fix a NoLimits 2 script if you make it incorrectly. That's going to be a matter of work on fixing your script. There's something in there. You probably want to reach out on the forums and find out what's specific in your script that isn't working correctly, what you're trying to do, and go with that. Projection is asking the new coaster style question. All right, well, the answer is going to be, it's exactly what you think it's going to be. It's going to come out when it's ready. Of course, everybody's thinking about different styles, or they may have the same one. And the answer to when every single coaster style is going to come out, for whichever ones we plan to add, is going to be when they're ready. When will that be? When they're ready. And we'll have time for maybe one more question here. Again, apologize if we are dropping frames and you're unable to hear the answers. Everything will be played later in the playback. For some reason, I'm having some internet connection troubles here. That is slowing things down. But we should be good at this point. Okay, so no additional questions are rolling in at this point. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Hope you learned a lot. Hope I was able to show you some new things that you weren't aware of, especially some of the more experienced users. That is going to do it for today. Hope everybody has the rest of their weekend, for however much you have left of it. The next broadcast will come along at some point, not exactly sure when, but when we have some additional topics that I'd like to cover, and I can certainly get to cover with you guys further in depth, we will certainly set that up again. We may have some additional experts come in here to explain some of the higher end features of importing scenery objects in additional places. I do see, where can I send suggestions? You're welcome to send suggestions, post them on any of our forums or any of the fan site forums there. There's usually a thread there where people post suggestions for future things. I'll save you a little bit of time if you're requesting RMC coaster styles or any roller coaster style of fill in the blank. Every single coaster style that has ever existed and has ever yet to exist, has not yet been invented for the next 500 years, is already on the list, so I can save you guys some time. No need to request your favorite roller coaster style, even the ones that haven't been invented. We know. In fact, whenever IAAPA coverage comes out, it's always amusing, because the moment a photo of some brand new crazy coaster concept exists, it takes about half an hour before somebody on the forums is asking us to put it in the game. So keep in mind that we do, it takes us a little while to do things correctly and make sure that the coaster styles are being built right, and that it's going to be one that we feel is going to get a lot of use. We have added a couple in there that don't really get much use at all. They're kind of single purpose trains, and we don't want to do that as much. But yes, if there's one that is really highly requested, we do certainly listen to that, and it comes down to a matter of time and when we can get a chance to add it properly. On that one. So other than that, that is going to do it for the end of the day of our day here. And by the way, if you would like a particular custom train and you don't want to wait for us, there are ways to do it. Look around the forums. There's a way that you can add your own custom trains in there through a combination of invisible trains, invisible track, and scripting, and then 3D modeling and a bunch of other things. So have yourselves a good weekend, good rest of the day. Be good to each other. Be constructive in your comments and feedback in the forums. Give lots of good feedback, because everybody likes to see comments on their coaster creations. Help everybody get better. And until next time, have yourselves a good afternoon, good evening, and keep on building NoLimits coasters.